Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Hey, Mara, I haven't seen you in ages.
Hi, Amy.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Maybe we can all go for a walk. You, me, and Patricia, right? The weather's good.
I love to walk, Amy.
Well, I love to walk. I don't know about Mar.
Maybe we should go for a run.
I can't run.
See?
I can't run.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi,
Oh, good.
Gino.
Hi.
Are you in Japan?
Yeah, it's 7:30 a.m.
Oh my God. Thank you for joining in.
You're welcome.
You're
I'm
like, good morning. I was like,
Well,
it's good evening.
Yeah, I had my coffee. I'm all showered and everything. I'm ready.
Yay.
Nice.
All right. Okay, we're gonna wait a few minutes for everybody to log on. And I hope my share screen works, Mar. I've been practicing, so let's hope it works.
If it doesn't, I can do it. I have it, and you can just say turn the page or scroll up or whatever.
Okay. All right. Well, if that's the case, I will. And then Mar, I'll have you check the chat, drop links if necessary. Okay. Hi, Colleen. I see someone that I recognize that I've been corresponding with. Let's see. Wait a few more minutes. How many committee members? Okay.
All right, Patricia, I'll make you the host and Mar the co-host now, okay?
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, 1 second. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Rich.
Hi, Rich. Rich, is that a background or is that finally your house? I think you're muted.
No, yeah, we moved our apartments. Yeah, yeah, I mean, I said I was gonna say it was really hard to move, but my wife did all the work
Oh, wow.
because, and she threw out, she's better at throwing stuff out. Like, I'm like, oh, look at this pot the kids made in first grade. And she's like, that garbage. You know, there's no sentiment. And I'm like, oh, what about this? You know, all that work of cleaning up.
Well, congratulations on the move.
Yeah,
Thanks.
congrats.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's something. We live on Charlton Street now, so Hudson Square is a different neighborhood. It's quieter. We used to live on 13th Street, and it was a lot busier.
13th and what?
Between 5th and 6th, on 6th.
Yeah, that's busy.
Yeah. So we're renting it. Well, I didn't want to give it up.
I worked right by where you are, and it's a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah, I think I give credit to Ellen and the bid. They did a good job, you know, of all the work they did to with the trees and the tree pits and the sidewalks, and they did a good job.
They did.
But a lot of places still closed right now. A lot of the office buildings closed. Google and all those guys. So
Why is, okay, hold on, I have to, Matt Metzger, can you talk? I think I've unmuted you.
Patricia, you allowed me to speak, but you didn't make me a panelist. It's okay.
Oh, all
You don't
right,
love me that much. It's all right. Oh, there we go.
great, welcome. I'll just give it one more minute before we start the meeting tonight. I think they've changed it, that you have to register and then,
Yeah.
Yes, that's what they did.
Yeah, we didn't get an alert 24 hours before again.
yeah. Is that new for all the meetings going forward, or it's just this meeting?
Oh,
You should have gotten a notification. I think it was an oversight.
Oh, okay. All right, if you see anybody else as a attendee, could you promote them, or that belongs on the committee?
Hi, Patricia, Mar, everybody. It's Michael Markowitz. I'm going to be on mute for 15 minutes as I'm walking, but listening
Okay.
in.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, then it's 6:35 and I think we have quorum, and I'm gonna start the meeting. Hello and welcome to the Schools and Education Committee of Community Board 2. My name is Patricia Laria, the chair, and I'd like to introduce you to the rest of our committee members. I see Amy Brenna, Rich Cachapolo, Michael Markowitz, who is our public member, Mar Fitzgerald, Shinatana Kaur, who's our public member, and Matthew Metzger. That's who I see so far. Others will be joining in as we continue. I do have to say, I don't see Georgia Silvera Seaman. She's added to this committee. She's one of our newest members. She may be joining in late. And I see Bob Gormley, who is our district manager, on the call. Welcome, everyone. Before we get started, I want to just go over some norms. Okay. All right, hold on. Let me see if I can. Can you see this, the agenda of the norms? Can everybody see it? Okay, great. The meeting protocol, please be respectful to whoever is speaking. If you have a different view, ask a question or raise your hand. Please do not type derogatory comments in Q&A. Attendees will be on mute until Q&A. Use Q&A and raise hand to ask questions. The agenda tonight is a discussion on school reopening. What will it look like? We will be discussing the DOE Homecoming 2021, our commitment to your health and safety, followed by a discussion on the resolution in support of providing a remote option for families in the 2021-2022 academic year, and then business session. Let me get into the, okay, this is up. Get into the home. If I could do it. Here is the DOE Homecoming 2021. Our commitment to your health and safety, which was sent out to families in August by Chancellor Misha Porter. And I think I have to hide everybody. This is okay. It goes over protocols of what you should do before school started, that you should have your child vaccinated if they're age 12 and older, that you had to submit a consent for COVID-19 testing. And they had links that you could go to for that. If your child is participating in any after-school sports with PSAL, Public School Athletic League, that they recommend, the vaccination is recommended for all students. participating in that. And again, the consent for providing consent for COVID-19 testing, they had links there that they also went on to say that all DOE employees and in-school based staff are required to be vaccinated by September 27th, at least have the first dose. There is this health screening that all students are to fill out daily prior to starting school. Face coverings and personal protective equipment. All students and staff must wear a face covering when riding on school buses, subway, anywhere on school property, indoors, outdoors, regardless of vaccination status. If you don't have a mask, the school will provide one. During lunchtime, masks may be removed so students can eat comfortably at a safe distance. Masks may be removed during designated mask breaks. And if your student is unable to tolerate the mask, alternative accommodations would be provided. The CDC recommends that schools maintain 3 feet of physical distance in classrooms to reduce transmission risk. And if you're not able to maintain the 3 feet, schools will, where possible, where there's a grade of students together, like 10th grade, 11th, they will keep those groups together to minimize transmission. The ventilation over the past year and a half, there were inspections and repairs provided to schools. There were 2 HEPA filters provided as well to all New York City classrooms. If there were cafeterias that were bigger, they provided a large HEPA with additional air circulation where needed. And if you want to find out more of what the status of your school, there is this link right here at the New York City net. If you could drop those links where needed. Also, every day, all classrooms, such as auditoriums and gyms, will be sanitized and disinfected and using electrostatic technology to disinfect. Last year, over 840 schools took advantage of the outdoor learning initiative, and that will continue. So where schools had that last year, they will continue to use the schoolyard, street space, and parks for additional learning. COVID-19 testing in school. Every school will have like 10% of unvaccinated individuals be subject to biweekly testing. And it's important that if you could provide consent for your child, you would go through your New York Schools account to do so. And they had links provided there as well. If there's a positive case in your school, such as an elementary school, students will be instructed to quarantine for 10 calendar days and will continue to receive instructions while they quarantine. In middle and high schools, if you're at least 12 years old, vaccinated, and not showing symptoms, you will continue to attend in school. And out of an abundance of caution, these students are encouraged to take the COVID-19 test, the 3 to 5 day after exposure. If you are 12 years old, vaccinated, and showing symptoms, you are directed to quarantine for 10 calendar days. And these students will have access to remote learning while quarantining. Unvaccinated they will have to quarantine for 10 days, get testing after 5 days. And if they get a negative test after 5 days, can come back on the 7th day. And here's the last part. If you have medically necessary instruction, these families that have children that have one of these following conditions: active cancer, leukemia, heart conditions, seizures, any of these conditions, will be in remote the whole year. And that is like an accommodation that you have to go through to get this special accommodation. And I think that's the highlight of this homecoming. So I'm gonna stop it here because the rest goes on to go into the calendar for the year and so forth. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so that I can see everybody. Oh, okay. And if there are any questions from the committee, please raise your hand. And I also I see Georgia is here. Welcome, Georgia. I just told everybody that you are our newest member to the Schools and Ed Committee.
Oh, hi. Hi. Sorry, there's a lot, going on in the background at this time of day, so I'll probably keep
Okay.
the camera off.
No worries. So I just went over the homecoming a little manual, and I see there's a question from Michael. Go ahead, Michael.
Hi, apologies for the background noise and thanks for the opportunity. First, welcome to our new member. It sounds like, and I'm no expert, that the protocol for getting kids back into school and putting them in masks and shots if possible, blah, 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 is relatively well thought out. But when you got a system that overall has 1 million kids in it, it stands to reason that there's going to be schools, maybe even in our community board area, certainly citywide, where it kicks into the isolation protocol. And when I heard, I forgot what it says, 10 days of quarantine, is that within the school building or at home? If it's at home, that means there sort of is a remote opportunity that otherwise the city said was unavailable. I think that's where this whole program is going to trip up, other than parents' initial reluctance to put their kids back into tight quarters. It's the protocol of a teacher or another kid tests positive. What if it's a family member who tests positive? Does the kid then go into protocol? All that seems to have been given a light and unduly conservative dusting. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments, Michael. You're right. I feel like the school needs to be a little bit more forthcoming about what they are doing individually. I know that my son's school, that they sent out their own initial protocols of what is to happen. I know that, like, for lunch, his whole grade, because he's in 11th grade, they went out to lunch. The entire grade was let out at once. Regarding the screening, they had to fill out that screening the morning of or the night before. And it went down for a little bit this morning, and then it came back up. So, and then they staggered the start time. So I know that certain schools do it differently, but that's what that school did. And I think that the school leaders have to keep in communication with the parents to get more clarity on it. But I hear your concerns.
If I could just add one more thing, there's a huge difference between a student who's tested positive, or a teacher, and somebody who's going through a quarantine protocol because of exposure. And the last thing I'll say is, I was up at, even though it's college, I was up at Binghamton, and I picked my kid up that day when I heard that their quarantine facility was going to be a special set aside dorm, which sounded lovely until I got the wrong answer to the $64,000 question. Will there be a mix of kids who are there for quarantine protocol and kids who are already known test positive? That's the tripwire that I want to go fishing for here for the DOE schools, because Binghamton, for everything they did right, blew that one in my view, and I got her ass out of there, because you don't want to get sick while you're in quarantine.
Right.
So if there's in-school quarantine, it has to be specifically for kids who test negative but who've been exposed. If a kid tests positive, my heart goes out to them. COVID is significantly serious and could have long-term, long-haul side effects. But at that point, that's a medical situation that the DOE can't be responsible for. The positive tested kid needs to be out of the school, which leads to they're going to need a remote system, even if they'd rather not say so now. Thanks very much.
Okay. Well, keep that in mind when we talk about our resolution as the next agenda item. We're going to have to keep those thoughts and that you brought up and verbalize that into a whereas. Rich?
Am I the only one who was surprised by the wording of kid test positive, not showing symptoms, still go to school?
I did
No,
not notice that, but if I had, I would have hit the roof.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if it says if they're test positive and they show symptoms, don't go to school. But if they test positive and no symptoms, it said keep going to school.
I
Yes,
assume you've got it
except for
right, and if so, that's
vaccinated.
ridiculous.
That is the current guidance, that if people test positive, teachers or students, but are asymptomatic, that they're expected to quarantine in class with their class or pod. Yes. Teachers who test positive, who are asymptomatic, are expected to show up to work.
Is that
That's
for
what it plays.
vaccinated
Wow.
individuals?
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow, that is ridiculous because
That's
it's
na-
so
it's- that's
subjective
national
whether you're
guidelines, by the
showing a
way.
symptom or not, who's sniffling, who's not sniffling. The fact of the matter is, as I understand the science, my understanding of the facts are, if you test positive, you're contagious, even if you're asymptomatic.
um,
Can I
okay.
ask a follow-up? Sorry, I'm curious if that guidance that Rich mentioned is for vaccinated versus unvaccinated individuals, because when I was exposed at the CB2 meeting and I went in to get a COVID test, the physician told me that the new CDC guidance for vaccinated individuals is that if you test positive but are asymptomatic, you're free to move about the country. You just need to monitor for symptoms. So I just want us to be very specific and to look for if the DOE is saying this for vaccinated versus unvaccinated. And not that it really matters, but I think in the context of the resolution, we want to be pretty precise about the specific issues that are causing us concern. Thanks.
Point.
Okay. Who's next? Georgia, did you want to contribute some, because you were next?
Yes, about the remote option, and I've been following the conversation about a remote option, and I've been doing this online and getting newsletters. And there's one piece about having a remote option, a full-time 5-day-a-week remote option that's centralized, and that's one remote option bucket. And then the second one is for the issue K-5, where one child is test positive and that entire classroom closes and kids stay home. They don't come into school. The classroom closes. The students in that classroom stay home. And based on what I know, at least for my daughter's classroom, activities and lessons will be distributed, remotely. And that's not like an education for 10 days. That seems quite like busy work. And so if the teacher and the teacher's classroom is closed for 10 days, that teacher should be able to deliver the lesson plan remotely and not simply provide, I don't know, like handouts or watch a video kind of situation for 10 days. So in whatever resolution comes out of this, when we're talking about remote, I would really like to break out those two remote buckets, that there's like a full-time 5-day-a-week remote option. And then for families who are choosing to send their students in person, then those students need to receive the same level of education if their classroom closes for quarantine purposes. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. Sheena?
Thank you, Patricia. Oh my God, where to begin? There's just so much wrong with how this went down. Okay, I'm going to start with the consent forms. I'm hearing from some people that there are only 10% of the students filled out the testing consent form. So then 10% of that 10% will be receiving tests biweekly. That's a huge problem. I think Ushma Neal from CECD2 requested data from the superintendent's office to see where we are at schools in terms of consent form return rates. So hopefully we'll have a better picture after the CEC meeting this week of which schools we need to actually put some pressure on. Some schools are sending it out as required, you must return kind of a form. Some schools are actually backpacking physical hand printed out copies, but that is going to be a huge issue. Right? If only a very small percentage of families consented to having their kids screened, then any testing is really not going to help us. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up.
Mhm.
And there have been some discussion on whether it is a good idea to bar unvaccinated caregivers from entering school buildings. Now, the original notice went out with saying that on the first day of school, that was going to become effective. The guidance document that we just looked at said September 27th. So maybe that's okay, but it was a concern among some parents because we were not clear when that policy was going to go into effect. And as you mentioned, Patricia, the health screening, that
Mhm.
just it seems like unnecessary. One more thing that everybody has to do that delays the students from entering the building. I've heard from multiple parents, there is a huge line
Mhm.
around the school building and there is no social distancing. So you have these masses of parents and children waiting outside the school building to get in, and they couldn't because of that app crashing. And it just takes time for school staff to verify every child's app. So I'm not quite sure if that form actually does anything. All you have to do is lie if you really needed to get into the building. And if you are a good person, then you wouldn't even be at the school if you checked any of the conditions that doesn't allow you to come into the building. It just seems like something that we don't need to actually require people to do. And I did hear, and this is actually related to this too. I did hear from one kindergarten teacher in CB2 elementary school that she has 25 kids. 25 kids in a kindergarten class.
Wow, that's huge.
That is not acceptable from a non-pandemic viewpoint. It is even more unacceptable right now. How are you supposed to do physical distancing with 25 kids in kindergarten class? That's just ridiculous. So I can get a little more information without compromising the teacher's identity, but we should
Mhm.
really look into class sizes in our schools.
Okay.
Thanks.
Chino, we
Yeah.
before the break, we did a reso on class size and all that money that was coming. So what happened? Could you regarding
think
that?
City council or the mayor only gave something like 18 million or 25 million for class size reduction when we were asking for 250 million. So class size reduction does not seem like this administration's priority. We are supposed to be getting more money from the feds. And I think there's an advocacy effort going on to actually set aside some of that money for real class size reduction earmarked for it. But right now we don't have enough funding to really meaningfully reduce class size.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have to advocate again on that. Are there any more questions from our committee members before I go to attendees? And attendees, if there are any parents out there, we'd like to hear your experience today on the first day of school, if you can share that.
Sure. If you can promote
Yes.
Akila, I think she has a question.
Oh, I didn't, okay. Hi, Janine. Janine Kiley is joining us, our board chair. And I see Akili Asqui. Welcome. So Janine, did you have a question or want to share what happened on the first day of school today before I go to attendees?
Yeah, I was just going to share that I actually haven't seen that consent form, or if I have, it's been buried in an email. So the consent form that, unless my child is over 12, so I don't know if it's going to parents whose kids are vaccinated, but just to the form that allegedly no one's signing, it might be because no one's seen it. And I'm not sure why that might be. And obviously, and I think to Georgia's comments, and I'm sure this has to do with some union negotiations, I feel like the remote option is like this incredibly low bar. And obviously we know the DOE system is capable of robust remote learning because we, many cases had that last year. So I just hope that the DOE wants to raise the bar if our kids end up having to go home. So I guess that's sort of the main message, is that if there is a remote option, it needs to be robust, and we can't lowball our standards. That's it.
Thank you, Janine. Matthew Ramirez, did you want to contribute to this conversation? I see you as a panelist.
Oh, I just, you had said anybody want to chime in on their experience for
sure.
the first day. So
Go ahead.
if you're not ready for that, I'll wait for that.
No, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So my kids are at PS51 in Hell's Kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a disastrous show today with drop off and pickup. I recorded a video of it, and I have never seen such disorganization in my life. And we're right across from Beacon High School, so it was this mash between the high school kids in the mix, cars and taxis going through the street, kids running into the street. There was just no like organization to this at all. No safety at all. No parents had masks on. Half of the kids had taken their masks off already. So that was just my experience today. I believe Shino had brought it up. That health form, it was just a giant waste of time. We had people 2 blocks down waiting to get into the building. No social distancing at all. You're absolutely right. I said it to my wife this morning. I'm like, we could just lie, put whatever we want on it. And we live in a very working class neighborhood, so parents are just going to lie on those forms to send their kids to school, sick or not sick. They can't afford daycare, childcare. It's going to put things into a heated mess. But that's just kind of my experience today. Even during pickup, we'd asked multiple parents, like, you got to put your mask on. There's no social distancing. We're crushed into it. We had originally, I had asked the principal, why don't we do a staggered arrival and a staggered dismissal? She said no. She said DOE will not allow it. DOE says the kids have to be in the classroom for X amount of minutes in the day. And I said, but we're in Hell's Kitchen. There isn't a lot of room to do anything. And excuse me. Our principal, Stephanie Lucas, just did not want to hear any of that. And a lot of the parents, I'm part of the parents committee in our neighborhood too as well, and they are just up in arms right now about what occurred today. So, sorry, that's my 2 cents. I think we could do better. I've offered to even write up an arrival plan and a dismissal plan for her. I run a tech company, so I'm very familiar with procedures, and I was like, I'm willing to write the plan for you, times dismissals. That way we can get kids in and out, and there isn't parents crowding that front door because we only have one entry on the front. And my kids they haven't been in school since it locked down. We did all remote. And even they came home saying, a lot of the kids in my class didn't have masks on, and it just really stressed them out. So, thank you. That was my 2 cents.
Thank you, Matthew. And PS51, what grades are we talking about?
I have a 4th grader and a 2nd grader.
Wow.
And trust me, they are so excited to be back at school more than anything. That's why I would love to do whatever I could to help keep this school open. Mm-hmm. And I just think we have a young principal. She's doing everything she can to keep it open. And I get it, for first couple years in the gig,
Mhm.
But we've got a lot of really smart, intelligent people in our neighborhood. We should take advantage of it, you know, to help, you know, with this. Parents are willing to get up
Mhm.
early and do some sort of staggered arrival and staggered like dismissal. And I agree with the non-vaccinated caregivers. They shouldn't be in the building at all. Yeah.
Right. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
It's that's alarming and problematic. I mean, at my son's school, which is 6 to 12, the principal had a staggered start to the school day.
Yeah,
So I'm
I've
not
sent her an
certain why.
email, even on our big Zoom thing. I put it in the chat like, hey, let's do a staggered start, let's do a staggered arrival, staggered dismissal. And she was like, the DOE won't allow us to do it. Everything to her was DOE. We even brought up because they're going to allow the kids to share musical instruments, and she said the DOE said that coronavirus is not spread by touching things. And I'm like,
Oh,
now we're doctors, you know. It's like my kid had music class today, and it's like, yeah, we passed drums, we played drums, we did all that together with no social distancing, no nothing, in a basement, you know. So it just, like I said, I want my kids to stay there. I want them to stay in school. I do whatever we can to help keep it safe and keep it open.
all right. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you. for
Trisha,
sharing.
sorry, just quickly, it might be that 6 to 12 or high schools are able to do staggered arrival, because that's sort of something that some schools already implement, right?
Yeah.
But it's harder to do in elementary schools when everybody follows the same schedule, because you don't have these block programming that middle schools and high schools do. So it might be that elementary schools are not allowed to do staggered arrival, but
Yeah.
middle schools and high schools are.
But I know that at our local school, PS3, there's different entrances. I would think they utilize different entrances, even if you can't stagger it, that the
Right.
kids aren't on top of each other.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Thank
do have
you.
we have two different entrances. We have like 3K to first grade go through one side, and they go to the back courtyard, which doesn't make sense. And then the rest of second grade through fifth grade come through the front door, which is the size of an apartment door, you know, two apartment doors in New York City. So can you imagine a couple hundred kids trying to funnel through that, you know? And it's like, even if we staggered, like, you know, all second grade classes arrive at 8:02, all third grade classes arrive at 8:10, you know, and just get everybody into the building, you know, between 8 and 8:30, because school starts at 8:30. But even if we can do staggered arrival within like 15-minute intervals, the way you get on an airplane, you know, we can still get everybody in time for class. It's just, you know, just, you know, small precaution.
Thank you again, Matthew,
Sure,
for
anytime.
sharing. Georgia, and then I'm gonna go to Leslie after you, Georgia.
Sure. I just wanted to follow up on Matthew's comments. My younger child is in elementary school, and they did do staggered drop off and pickup today. The pickup worked really well because there were no forms. This morning, the drop off was quite chaotic because teachers were checking the forms, and that system didn't even have our school name in it. So a lot of people spent time looking for that, and then word of mouth, you click other, and then you type in the school name. And so I think if that form could be eliminated, or I don't know what the solution is, but it really gummed up the drop off this morning. It's a huge issue because the school is using the street. There's adequate space. Classes have different entryways, but because of this crowding around the form, it really took much longer than it should have. Thanks.
Thank you, Georgia. Leslie Woodruff. Let's. Leslie, could you share your Leslie?
You're muted, Leslie.
Hello, yeah.
We can come back to her.
Okay, all right.
While we're waiting, I'd love to share my experience if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
So yeah, it was not good. It was really crowded. I mean, my kid's school is co-located with 3 or 4 other schools, and it was really hard to figure out which door to enter through. And we ended up on the wrong line where there was no social distancing and the kids were not wearing masks at all. It was a cluster blank, you know, at the right door and at the other door in the front. And it was just nuts. We came with our COVID screener. I have a stack of them that I just put in her backpack every day. So that was not a problem for us, but I did hear from several people that the system was down, and Janine told me people were even doing verbal. I heard it from somebody else, like the principals are standing outside of schools actually doing verbal screenings for people coming into the schools, which made it even worse. No social distancing coming in and a crunch at the front. I also found out today that I was told this morning that my kid would be having lunch with her grade, which is about 120 kids, plus faculty and staff in a closed cafeteria. The school has absolutely no outdoor space whatsoever. So this was no out lunch until November is what I was told. So I immediately, because that's crazy, I immediately emailed the principal and said, you know, what can we do? These kids need to get outside. They, you know, don't get outside for recess. They don't get outside for gym. They need some air. Can we close? Well, I didn't say, can we close the street? Because I didn't think of it at the time, but now I'm saying it. But looking into POPs, looking into, you know, local parks, anywhere that they can go out to eat, because the cafeteria situation is crazy. And my kids said there were no seats, and, you know, she ended up at a very tiny table with 2 other girls. And this is going to be the whole year. They have to figure something out. And parents shouldn't have to, although I'm sure we're happy as Matthew, I'm happy to make suggestions. So that's what I did. I made several suggestions. Maybe if we do this, and staggered entrance was one of them. So I don't know. Anyway, that was my experience, which was not at all unique. And you know, I do feel like I'm sending my kid into a death trap for the 2nd day in a row.
Thanks for sharing, Mar. I'm sorry that was your experience.
Leslie's back.
Okay, hi, Leslie. You're able to talk, Leslie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, terrific. Okay. Well, I won't repeat what some of my fellow parents have already said about their experience this morning and this afternoon at PS 51. I'll definitely concur. It was not meeting my expectations. It was alarming. It was a very difficult day, especially for those of us who've been out of the classroom for 18 months and have been in charge of every single aspect of their child's life from sunup to sundown. To go from that to this total sense of being out of control was really hard for me. You know, I dropped my child off in the midst of chaos. The, you know, sidewalk was overflowing. The streets were busy. You know, we could have easily taped off some parking spots in front of the school so that we could overflow into the street. That, you know, was one of the suggestions that I made today to the principal, vice principal, and parent coordinator. I sent a very carefully, cheerfully, and appreciative email to them to make some suggestions coming from like a lens of, I'm an event planner and let's look at crowd control and how can we streamline this a little bit better. But handing off my child to someone I've never met before, wearing a mask and wearing no identification, that was, you know, not fun. And I also, you know, I think it's fair to say I don't appreciate the teachers union president, Michael Mulgrew, popping by this morning to welcome everyone back to school and bringing a huge crowd of TV cameras and media photographers and making it even more of a circus. I understand that he wanted to, put on like a nice little press appearance, but today was already challenging enough without having proper crowd control in place and having a little bit more streamlined setup, and then I was really hoping the afternoon would go better, but unfortunately it looked like the high school across the street let out just moments before we did pick up. So we had hundreds of unmasked teenagers streaming towards us as we're trying to, enter the school yard to pick up our young children. So my expectations were not met today. I hope that tomorrow goes better. I also learned from my child that she didn't receive the grab and go breakfast this morning, which was disappointing. I don't know why it wasn't offered, and I confirmed with another parent from the same classroom. Her child said the same thing. I obviously want to see things through. Let's see how this whole week goes, but I have no problem pulling my child. And if the Department of Ed is not going to offer us a virtual option for a saner school year, then I'll just send her to private school. I found a lovely little Catholic school in Chelsea, and that will be my fallback. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm sorry that it was chaotic and anxious today.
Thanks.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. I'm all right, Matthew, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I clicked the. I was trying to click the wrong. But I agree with Leslie. It was the video. With the cameras and everything today, they touted it like they just won the Super Bowl today at PS51. They were, and I felt bad for him because he picked the exact wrong school, especially at pickup where Beacon was involved, and we had high school kids. Kids could have walked off. Nobody had any, and there were cars driving by. A car could have scooped a kid up like nobody's business, like really, really easy. But Leslie, I like your idea of blocking off the parking lot. And you're a lot nicer than I was to the principal by writing a nice email.
All right, thank you both for sharing. I have a question in Q&A. Let me go to that before I go to you, Elka. It's from Annabelle Oriana. In K through 12 schools, are they allowing religious exemptions to dismiss the vaccine? Because universities are allowing for that, which I believe is also hazardous. Does anyone on our panel have an answer or know the answer to that?
I know that as of 2 days ago, according to the UFT negotiations, that teachers are able to receive religious exemptions, although they're technically not mandated, right? It's either weekly test or vaccine. So that's what I know. As far as the kids, there's no mandate, so I don't think that there would really be any reason to need a religious exemption. You just don't have to do it. Akila? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead, Akila.
I just wanted to say that religious exemption is no longer an option in New York State for children in K through 12. So I don't imagine that they would create the religious exemption option for COVID if it doesn't exist for any other vaccine, and it doesn't exist in either private or public schools in New York State.
Thank you. I hope that was all helpful, Annabelle. Thanks, Akila. Shino?
I think the little nuance there, the fact that the vaccine has not been approved fully by the FDA for 12 to 17, that's what makes it complicated, right? It's only approved for 18 and over. So that's the different story. When the vaccine is approved for that age group of 12 to 17, then there should be no religious exemption because the state legislature eliminated that. But we're not there yet because the FDA hasn't approved the 12 to 17 use of the vaccine. So I think right now people may be able to claim religious exemption, but like Mar said, it's not a requirement at the moment. So
Thank you,
it's a little
Sheena.
bit more complicated.
Okay, let me promote Elka to. Elka, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My child is also at PS 51 for the moment. I have to say that with everything that's been happening, I was very close to not bringing him to school today or ever again for that matter. And what transpired today at drop off and pickup just kind of affirms that if things don't change, I just don't trust the DOE anymore with my kid and with the safety of my kid. And that it just comes down to that. Matthew and Leslie both spoke, very nicely about the situation. It was a pure shit show. The fact that we can allow our kids to have to go through this and that they're not offering any option just kind of proves to me that there's just no consideration or concern about their actual well-being. Hold on, Zion. There are some things that I want to add to what's already been said. My child also said that it was warm in the room. There was no fan or any like air circulating in the room during the day. The class he's in 4th grade, but there's a considerable amount of kids in there. There's no way any room in that building can actually have 3 feet of space allotted to them, because I remember when we did the calculations for when we initially did the breakdown and we did an entire schematic of the entire building and mapped out how many kids can fit in a room with 6 feet of space. Now, if you double that, if you cut that in half, then you know how many kids can actually fit in that space with 3 feet of space. So we know for a fact that social distancing is not happening properly in the building. It's just not physically possible. And since the DOE decided, or whoever decided, that it's clearly not important to reduce the amount of kids in the class, I don't know how you can dedicate a huge chunk of money to reducing class sizes and there be absolutely no effort to make that happen. In fact, what did we do instead? We added 3K. So now we have more younger kids in the classroom, in a classroom that probably could have been used to, I don't know, maybe downsize or an existing huge class. And now we have younger people and more people in the building that was already crowded. Does that make any sense whatsoever? There's nothing. I'm just entirely disgusted in the fact, the only reason why my kid was in school today is because I didn't have a homeschool plan fully in place at this point, because that's where I'm at. I am disgusted, and I'm not going to wait for them to get things together. I'm going to get myself together, because I just don't trust that a remote option is going to be given to us, because I would have gladly done that. I would have gladly taken the remote option and continued trying to stay in the system and help things move along. I've been in the system for 20 plus years. My child's now in college. And it's really disturbing to know that I've put this much energy and effort to try to make things better, and to see the lack of consideration and care and what we are willing to put our kids through in this moment. And I literally had a panic attack when I dropped off my child this morning because of the situation. And so there's really no nice, sweet way to put it. I'm not going to write a nice, sweet email to any of my administration. In fact, if I write anything, it will say exactly how I feel and how incredibly disgusted I am. And the fact that anyone would think that it would be okay to have a news crew to come on the opening day when you don't even know how things are going to go down, but that was okay. And the superintendent, I think, was supposedly there as well, touting that our school was a model school that was safe. If our school is the safer school in the city, I don't know. There is no safe school in the city. And that's a fact. So I'm sorry, I wish I could bring something more helpful to this conversation at this point, but I have been going back and forth in meetings, with individuals, with groups, talking my head off. Nothing matters. And that's how I feel at this point. It doesn't matter what I have to say. And our kids don't matter to the DOE.
I'm so sorry, Elka. Oh, that is frustrating.
But what Elka didn't say, is, me and Elka are friends, we know each other, is that we're meeting against a wall, which is Stephanie Lucas. She's not helping in any way. She didn't help in remote, and I fear to say this because my kids go to school there, and I don't want any repercussions from her in any way. I'm sorry, Elka.
No, you're right, Matt. You're right. And the problem is also, guess what? I've been on the PTA for years. Were we involved in any of the planning processes? Were we asked at all about any of this? Was any of it run by us? Did they take any of the suggestions that we've been giving them for months about this whole situation? No. So I feel like there's no point. What is the point of coming up with solutions and making suggestions and volunteering and helping and trying to make things better for all of our kids if nobody will listen and nobody will bring us into the room when it matters and actually incorporate some of the ideas into the spaces that will actually help everybody? It will help the whole community, not just our kids. I feel bad for our teachers too. I've known these teachers forever. They have to be in these schools also of chaos. It's horrible. And it's I just don't know what to say. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Matt.
No, like I said, we've all heard. I mean, today was just a PR campaign for our school and our principal. I mean, the gist that I got from it is that she was, look at how I'm the best principal in the city, and it was sad. And it's a brick wall that we meet all the time, and we get very political emails back from her. Like, oh, we'll look into that. We're going to start a committee. And it's like, come on, man. Yeah. So sorry, Elka's our PTA president. And she's done everything she can to help in every way. And it's not just her or Leslie. I mean, we have text chains going all over right now. My phone's been blowing up non-stop. I mean, I have a video of pickup today I can send everybody, and you could see how insane it was, and the fact that we just meet with this brick wall of Stephanie Lucas constantly. We put ideas out there, and it's just the DOE no. And like, Elka is our PTA president. She should have a lot of pull. Most PTA presidents have a lot of pull in the school.
I'm actually not the PTA president this year. I was for the last year. This year, I'm VP of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, a position that we created last year to try to further that and work more on building that up. But how can we even work on that when our kids are not even safe? How do we work on anything else? This is not fair. And our voices weren't considered. I'm sorry, they were not. Everybody who wanted to throw their kids right back on in, everybody's sick of being at home. That's what everybody pressured and pushed. And when it came time to be in the space and speak up and talk about how that's fantastic. I think anybody who really wants to be there and the kids who need to be there should have the ability to be there. Guess what? If you had an amazing remote option, you can serve the remote kids who are not comfortable being in the space and have enough space for the kids and the teachers who want to be in the building. And you've instantly solved the problem. But I don't know. Who am I? What are my not worth anything, clearly.
I hear your frustration, Elka. I'm so sorry. This was such a frustrating day for you, for all of the PS41 folks that are on this call tonight. Shino?
I just wanted to put a little context on this conversation as well. And I'm sorry, Elka. I know you've been fighting this for a long time, and it is really incredibly frustrating for the DOE not to listen.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Stephanie could have done a few things differently, like staggered arrival. It sounds like it can be done because PS 130, PS 3, and a couple other schools have done it. So that's something she should have done. But I just wanted to share that this is citywide. There's a super organized group of parents in the Bronx who have been screaming at the top of their lungs, demanding a remote option. There's a group of super organized parents in Brooklyn who have been screaming at the top of their lungs, asking for a remote option. And nothing has been done, nothing. They're just stonewalling all the parents. They're not including anybody in developing plans. And I just wanted people to understand that this is a citywide issue and not just at PS 51 or Community Board 2 or School District 2. And I think if you have the bandwidth and the energy, we have to keep fighting.
Shino, I know that there is a CECD2 meeting where the superintendent always sits in on it. Should PS 41 parents get organized and show up there and voice their concern? Will that make a dent or not?
No. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Elka.
Sorry, Sheena, I didn't mean to cut you off, but no, nobody in there has any power to make a difference. I'm sorry. They don't have any power.
Right.
We can talk till we're blue in the face unless the majority of the people vote on creating a suggestion. I'm sorry, what are they called? An addendum or whatever? I don't know. Some kind of big recommendation to that this happened. They could create as many recommendations as they want. It's not going to make a change this big because they don't care. The mayor has created this whole fantasy that it's safe to go to school. And so everybody in the DOE has to fall in line and try to make it happen. So until there's some horrible travesty, which there will be, and I hate to say it, but it's going to happen, then there won't be change. And still, until they start realizing the same way somebody told me, actually at drop off, that like 22% of the charter schools have been closed already, they've been in school for 2 weeks.
Wow.
How are we not paying attention to any of these things? Any of them?
I mean, it's true. Success Academy is 3 blocks away from PS 51, and they've shut down 3 times since then. You know.
I think the really scary thing is the way they've set it up, though. They're not going to shut down, even with a bunch of positive cases. So we're going to have all these kids who are sick and teachers who are sick in the buildings. The DOE has fixed things so that even if we have multiple positive cases, there's always, asymptomatic, opt in. There are all these weird little rules that will prevent them from actually closing the school or quarantining for an adequate amount of time or splitting people up the right way. So even if it happens, it's just going to get worse, and worse. And Elka, like you said, like something terrible is going to happen. And we know what that terrible thing is, right? It's a really sick or dead kid. And it's horrible.
I said that to my wife today when I came home. I said, we're catching COVID. There's no 2 ways about it. We're catching it. We're vaccinated, but the 2 kids aren't. There's no way we're not going to catch COVID the way it was all set up today. It's impossible for us to not catch it.
No. I'm speechless. That's unfortunate that this is the road that we're going down.
And and I understand it's a DOE wide thing, but like at PS 51, we're a pretty small, tight knit community right here. I mean, we're in no man's land over here. I mean, if we can just get the principal to just bend a little bit to let us help, we're all willing to help, and not just say, nope, DOE. She stonewalls us all the time with the DOE this, DOE this, DOE this. And it's like, come on, we don't have to listen to the DOE. We can follow their guidelines, but let's manipulate this and adjust this a little bit to help our community, you know? Why not, you know? The goal is to stay open. Everybody wants to stay open. That's the goal. Why not like put our bets on something that's going to be more successful.
Thank you. Amar?
I wanted to ask these parents, if there was a remote option available, would you take it right now? And would
Yes.
you? Okay. Yes, immediately.
Sorry. Yes.
No, I hear you. And if you were to take it, would you want there to be opt-in periods available throughout the year, kind of the way they did last year, like 2 or 3 points during which you could come back in if you wanted to?
I personally don't need the opt-in.
Elka's done.
I know.
I mean,
I
yeah,
think
of course,
that's
the opt-in would be great. Like if we can have some kids remote for a certain amount of time and do the hybrid thing to keep the class sizes down, that would be awesome. That'd be amazing. But they tell us like that's impossible to do. And I'm like, you did it last year with the success. It's like, why not?
So maybe that's something we add to the resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Should we post the resolution now? I'll put it up.
Yeah, but I also have an attendee, Colleen, would like to add to this conversation. Is there a way to, let me promote her? It's not working on, she's coming, okay. Go ahead, Colleen, and after you, we'll go to the resolution. Colleen, can you unmute?
Hi, I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you for the open discussion, and my heart goes out to parents. Interesting first day. I just popped in to say that if there was a remote option, I would definitely say yes for my unvaccinated student, elementary school, not eligible. I have a child in middle school who is vaccinated, trying to feel a little bit more hopeful for embracing the science, but just based upon a lot of the feedback from the other elementary school parents, I think that stressing the nature of school buildings full of unvaccinated students, maybe could be like a priority group if there was a way to convince the DOE that they had to do a remote option, giving certain groups a priority over others, which now saying that out loud, I realize does not necessarily sound like a nice way of doing things. But just in terms of following the science, that would just be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, I'm trying to see if I can share the resolution. Hold on. I'm gonna go to
it.
Yeah, go ahead, yes. And then Akila, go ahead while she's sharing it.
Yes, I had a question, and maybe someone on the panel knows, maybe someone else. Is there any, legal action that parents are taking, maybe some of these groups that are working really hard to find, to really push the DOE to create a remote option? Is there a way to take legal action in this matter and create more pressure on the DOE? Or is that just not, fast enough at this point?
I think activists are definitely considering it, exploring that option. But if you know a lawyer who's well-versed in education law, I would love to have that contact so that I can share with those groups.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we're gonna go over this resolution in support of providing a remote option for families in the 21-22 academic year. Should I read it, the entire thing, or? Let's see. I guess I should just read it. So there,
Yes, read it.
okay, whereas New York City Department of Education has not yet offered a remote learning option for students and families for the 21-22 academic year, whereas the New York City Department of Education eliminated a remote option without consulting administrators, educators, school staff, parents, or students, despite the fact that 60% of public school families remain remote throughout the 2021 school year. Whereas the Delta variant has emerged as a dominant strain of COVID-19 in New York City, while experts are still learning about the Delta variant. It is clear from the outbreak in Provincetown, Massachusetts, that vaccinated people can both catch and spread the Delta variant. 77% of Manhattan residents have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 7% are fully vaccinated, but many still have not had access to the vaccine. Children under 12 years of age are District 2 attend schools that are at capacity and will likely not be able to accommodate CDC recommendation of 3 feet social distancing. There are students, families, and staff with the pre-existing health conditions that continue to be more vulnerable to serious complications due to COVID-19, and the DOE already has a program to provide remote learning to students who are unable to attend school in person due to medical constraints. Whereas the Department of Education has repeatedly broken the trust of public school families and staff throughout the pandemic and did not adequately educate or care for the students with disabilities, multi-language learners, students in temporary housing, LGBTQIA+ students, low-income students, and undocumented families even before COVID-19, thus exacerbating these families' experiences of school closures. The New York City Department of Education has consistently expressed their desire to provide individualized, culturally responsive, trauma-informed, high-quality learning in a safe environment to every New York City public school student. The working conditions of our dedicated educators and school staff inevitably become their students' learning conditions, making lowering class size an essential requirement for successful school reopening. Therefore, be resolved, Community Board 2 demands the DOE reinstate virtual learning and create a centralized option for families and staff throughout the 21-22 school year, complete with student, guardian, and educator input to ensure families and students and staff have the option of staying home as we continue to battle this deadly disease. So I'd like to hear, oh, okay, go ahead, Akila. I see your hands up.
Apologies, I didn't lower it before.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to go to the committee since I just read it. Or should we go ahead, Georgia?
For the, I mean, I don't know. I've never done any resolution writing. I don't know if this goes in a whereas or in the final therefore be it resolved. But I just wanted to, again, make a distinction, and I don't know if it needs to be made, between the 5-day-a-week full-time remote learning with, you know, qualified teaching staff for families who opt into remote. That's one remote option. And then for families who choose to send their children into the school building and then a classroom closure happens, and this is for K through 5, because I know there's sort of different rules or different steps for if a student tests positive in middle school and high school. It's not a full classroom, complete classroom closure. But in the instance when that happens in the K through 5, again, that classroom teacher who's no longer entering the school building needs to be providing the same level of education as they would if they were in the classroom. Because I mean, I think in both cases, you want to create like a seamless, continuous, uninterrupted, high quality education for the entire school year. And it's been done. It's not like the DOE has to reinvent the wheel this year. But I wanted to thank you, Synchronous, make that distinction there. And then sort of going earlier up in the resolution, since this is a new one, using some sort of older language. I'm wondering if there's kind of newer touch points that we could use, not just the outbreak in Massachusetts. If there's sort of newer events that we could use to make the case a stronger case for the remote option. Specifically, I guess in this region that's highly vaccinated as opposed to like southern states where, you know, it's low vaccine rate, no mask mandate, etc. And I'm happy to see if I can like.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you
something.
help me with that? Locate that if possible, wherever you see it. Could we stop sharing? Is there any other question? Should we start our business session so we can discuss this, or is there, let me see, is there anyone from the attendee list that would like to add anything more that we haven't discussed or brought up? Because we're going on over an hour of this meeting and I want to be able to capture everything that we wanted for this reso before I close attendee conversation and just go to business session. Last call. Who's that? So now, let me promote you. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, so I was listening on this call while I was making dinner, so sorry, I was not anticipating speaking, but I'm actually, I will say, sort of appalled at what I'm hearing is happening at other schools. I will say I'm a former PTA exec board member and SLT member at PS11, and I was telling Matthew sort of offline that what I saw at PS11 today was night and day from what is being described at 51, but my older one who's at Salk told me that half of the school building has no ventilation and no air conditioning, and I have no idea what's happening in that school building, and it really is a mess, you know. And so I think leadership is everything, and those of you on this call who know me know that I have done a lot of advocacy with the DOE over a long time. My kids are back in remote, if they back in I wish back in school, obviously. And if there was a remote option, I would take it. But I find the audacity of the Department of Education with all of the parent voices that are being consistently presented to them to, you know, focus on media cameras and basically self-glorification. It's the U of T, it's a DOE, it's everybody. Really disgusting. But I will say this, so the reason I spoke is I think that PS11, I have my own issues with some of the policies that have been in place, but they have come up with a really solid plan with a lot of parental input, with a lot of PTA input, with a lot of SLT input. And, you know, the funny thing is, so I was touting it to the world, being like, we're doing such a great job and I love this school so much. And I'm so glad my, you know, both my kids went through here, et cetera, et cetera. And then I got an email earlier today that said, the kids are swimming tomorrow. Please send in a bathing suit and cap and whatever they need for swimming. And I thought, okay, so that's not going to happen. And the original plan was the pool was going to open in October and we were going to get all this information about, you know, how many kids and what the changing situation was going to be like and what the, you know, obviously kids can't wear masks in the pool. So, you know, I guess I say all this to say, look, you know, Shino knows me, a couple of other people here know me. I've always been a very strong advocate for the child. I think as parents, those of us who are very good at navigating the system can navigate it for our own children, and that's kind of the problem in the system. But I would really like to sort of, you know, think about ways in which parents outside of, I'm dreading the CCD2 meeting tomorrow. It's live, I'm not going, which is sort of a shame that they haven't gotten together to provide some kind of virtual option for entire District 2. But, you know, so I'm just offering, I guess, myself up as a resource. secretly, I am an education lawyer formally. I do have some background in some of these things. And so if anybody wants to reach out to me personally about their own schools and kind of what some of the options might be, I am, sorry, I didn't realize my video wasn't on. I'm offering myself here as a resource. So
Thank you for that, Sonal.
I should have kept that video off. I'm just gonna turn it back up. Okay, all right. Good.
So no, when you said it was night and day, what did you mean? Like that? Were you?
So no,
they
it was
good?
it was incredible. It was impressive. We had lines. So the other difference, Matthew, is that we have 21st Street from 8th and 9th entirely closed off. It's been like that for the last 9 years. And that is really, it's everything, right? So my kids can walk from the corner to the school by themselves. I'm not worried about somebody running them over. So when you have a school that's closed off, yeah, it sucks. The kids are eating lunch on the street on blankets, but they're outside, right? And so the closure of the street, I think, is something that I would actually advocate schools that are mid-block in very busy areas like PS 51 to do. Somebody did it years ago for PS 11, and 21st Street is closed from 8 to 4 every single day. And that makes a world of a difference because real estate is key, right? And so you can do that. And I walked by, I saw on my way to work to meet a client, I walked by PS, gosh, I should know this, but the Foundling School on 17th and 6th, they don't have that luxury, right? That entire street is open and it's crazy. And I think just if the DOE thought about maybe working with other agencies and working with the city in closing temporarily, it doesn't have to be the whole day. It can be, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. And then after 9, your kid's that late, then you're gonna have to deal with the cars. But otherwise, 8 to 9, you know that you have a safe, open space to send your kid to school. So what I saw in your video, Matthew, was chaos.
Chaos,
Right?
utter chaos, right?
It's literal utter chaos. And that's not okay because the city is still the city, whether it's a DOE or DOT or DOB or whatever the D is, it is one common, governmental operation, right? So the reason that PS 11 can do this is because we have sidewalks, we have streets, we have an entire city block to separate our children. We have 4 different entrances and a huge courtyard. So it works, right? Logistically, with that, it can work. And we have a principal, quite frankly, who is 100% committed to listening to people and to, not always taking their opinions, but, but has had over the course of last 3 or 4 months, multiple conversations with parents and takes the leadership, the parent leadership of the school, the SLT and the PTA exec board seriously. So I think that's important.
So now Elka said that they have tried at 51. I see it in the chat.
Yeah,
They've
some streets are not allowed.
Hi, Elka.
Hi, sorry, how are you?
Good, how are you?
So some of the streets are actually that street. We've tried to close down that street. And we're not allowed to. It's a main street that's an exit from the highway or something. And because of the through traffic, it's not, believe me, we've tried for years to make that not a possibility. So
well, since you're on board, I'm pretty sure you have tried to make that happen for years. But but I will. But that's a thing that DOE has to consider, right? Not every building is in the same place in the city, and if you have a principal who is unwilling to listen to that and just wants to be, that photographs taken of her to be on the New York Post or Chalkbeat or whatever the case is, then that different solutions need to be considered. And I know you guys are doing everything you can. I'm just here to say, let me know if I can help in some way, share a different perspective, share a different expertise. I'm here for you guys because this whole city for the last 20 years that I've been doing education advocacy has been kind of a raging shit show. And it's only because I know how much of a raging shit show that the city education system is that I've been able to navigate it and have my children educated in it. But that's not the experience for everyone. So
thank you for that, Sonal. And this was valuable for people here for tonight. I'm gonna go to Michael.
Hi, thanks. I'll be brief. I think we can honor some of the feedback we've heard from parents by adding one or two whereases that reflect, given the difficulties of doing the screening for kids entering school, that's one more reason to offer a remote option. And maybe in the therefores, say, just brainstorming here. I guess this is a whereas there's a high likelihood that students or classes or schools will need remote, just start offering it now.
Okay. Could you add that, Michael, in the comments? I think you have access.
Yeah.
So I don't forget.
I could type it out in the comments.
Thank you.
Very coarsely.
Thank you. Shino?
I'm not going to belabor this point, but the street closure is not the DOE, it's the DOT. And the DOT is absolutely the most horrible agency to work with when you want to actually talk about student safety. So that 21st Street, PS 11, that street has been closed for a long time. When my older one went to the Clinton school, it was already a closed street for school purposes. But we've been trying to close one lane of a 3-lane street on West 17th Street for PS 340 for the last 6-7 years, and DOT wouldn't do it. So I think down the road, we might want to do a resolution on this particular issue of traffic safety around schools that are in a densely populated area. And we might have to get political and get to whoever the DOT commissioner is going to be under the new administration, if we have any sense of who that might be. In terms of the resolution, I think we might want to pull out that part about in consultation with parents as its own, therefore be resolved. So we call for remote option. And then as a standalone, that when the DOE actually develops the remote option, they must consult and collaborate with parents in developing such plans or something like that, rather than bearing it in the same, therefore be resolved.
Okay, thank you. If you could highlight that for me, Shino. I'm gonna start business session. So I want to thank everyone that came out tonight. In business session, the attendees are not able to talk anymore. You're able to stay and listen to what is being discussed. And I hope that we will be able to capture this and get it into our resolution to get it out to our elected officials and the DOE and put some pressure on these people. So thank you. And then now is our business session. I'll go to Michael. Are you still with us? You want to have another? Your hand's still up. You had another point? No. Okay, Mar?
Oh, I forgot. Oh, Georgia had a good suggestion, as did Michael, if they would both write that directly into the resolution. I believe everybody has suggesting powers, so you can type directly into the resolution. It won't mess anything up.
Can you add the link to that document in the chat, Mar?
Or I'll put it back in.
Thanks.
Thank you. So this was a very healthy discussion. Is there anything more that we should add to this resolution that we're not considering? I mean, I don't have anyone from like PS 130 here to give us their view of what happened today. Did anyone reach out? Sheena, do you have anybody that you know that went there or might have consulted with you?
There was somebody who put a comment in the Q&A, somebody from PS 130. Maybe that person had to log off.
Oh,
I can't remember the name.
We answered both the questions. The two questions were in K through 12 schools, are they allowing religious exemptions? And then there was a comment that 130 did it well. Was it in the chat?
It was in
Maybe it was in the
Q&A.
chat. Oh, it's Q&A.
Yeah, it says, she said, I'm jumping on super late, but PS 130 in Manhattan is doing staggered entry at multiple entrances. My understanding is that it can be done if the school takes the time to organize it, not a pro, just my personal experience. And I believe 130 is a elementary school, right? Yeah. So they're able to do it.
Okay, yeah, it is. So there, I mean, honestly, it's the same thing. I think Elsa and Michael and I were all saying the same thing, which is, you know, we now find ourselves organizing how this could work in our minds and sending it to the school as parents, which is like, it begs the question, why did they not even think of this?
Right.
So my principal emailed me back and said that they will be using 2 separate entrances now for the kids of this one school. And that the 7th and 8th graders will use one entrance and the 6th graders will use another entrance, which makes sense since the 6th graders, most of them are under 12s and can't use it. I can't get vaccinated. So to separate them from the older kids, I think is pretty smart. And she is also very open to the idea of using a park or a POPS to get the kids out, particularly when eating. And as far as the street closure, I've actually done this for schools before. And it is the DOT, but at the end of the day, it's our local electeds. So maybe that's something else that goes into a resolution, even though this resolution is on remote learning,
right.
We do one on overall reopening. Maybe that's something, you know, we do next month if things are either sorted or all the schools are closed. Sorry, but who knows?
Yeah, there is definitely a need for a reso on that. Matthew?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need a citation on the second whereas and the third whereas. I'm not really sure what it's doing here. I agree that vaccinated people can transmit. It's just not, I don't know, for a lot of reasons, I don't think it's a particularly applicable one, mostly because it's a pretty simple statement about a really, really complex topic. But moreover, this feels a little bit, and the person that I'm directing this to knows that I adore them, that this is a little bit of a point of personal privilege, effectively. This isn't about making school safer for everyone. It's about making, and don't get me wrong, I'm for this second statement, but it's about making access to those who can provide a space for the kids all day long to study in at home, making sure that they're able to do that. And I'm for that, but I'm also worried about the kids that don't have that option, that don't have the ability to go to private school. They don't have the ability to be at home, and a safe school is the only thing for them. That's the only option. And I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we can advocate for a safe school and simultaneously say for those who want to have a remote learning option. I have no problem with that, but there's a fatalism that I feel is more informed than, is more symbolic than anything else, that the schools can't be safe. And I just don't believe that the schools can't be safe. I would agree that today and many other instances make it so that make us to believe that they aren't currently, or that they could be more safe. But I definitely disagree that every parent is going to get COVID. I hope that and pray that that is not true. I don't want us to lose sight of the fact that we have to have a school for a lot of kids to go to, and that's the reality of the reality. I mean, I would love for everybody to have a home where they could stay home, but that's not the city we live in, not the world we live in.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. I'm sure we're going to get some rebuts to that. I'm going to go to Akila.
Thank you. I mean, I have a lot to say on that. mostly that the DOE has failed 100% and entirely to create safer schools. And they had plenty of smart, intelligent people to talk to about doing this, and they failed miserably. You can't have the same exact number of students enter into a classroom as pre-COVID and still remain within safe guidelines. It's impossible. The fact that they did not really take all of last year, if they plan to open this year, to restructure the schools, to restructure and to really look at class size and to really bring it down. The fact that they did not put into place any kind of competent, halfway competent testing system for a year and a half, it's reprehensible. It's incredibly, I mean, I don't really have the words. To me, it's almost sociopathic. I mean, I just have to really put it out there like that, because you are putting people in harm's way and you have the ability to not do that. And so, I would like to see in this resolution, one of the things that I would like to see is a much more, and I know this can cut both ways, but what I'm hearing from the parents who showed up today is there is like zero collaboration with families. And I would love to, maybe in our resolution, have it say, that in creating a 100% remote option, which they must do. I mean, it's just irresponsible what they're doing to families by doing it this way. It should be in consultation with the SLT. I feel like that everything, like, if you're going to create a remote option, whatever changes you make, the SLT should have write-off for each school building, because that houses both the teachers, the leadership, and the parents, the people who inhabit the buildings, who know the buildings the best. And I feel like the DOE should be answering to the SLTs of each school building whenever they come up with plans. And maybe this is just not possible, but I don't see any other way to create a check on the decision making line without involving like people who really work in the buildings, and it's a body in the school that's both parents and educators and leadership. I don't know if that seems reasonable, possible, something we can, if other people think that that's a good idea.
I think we should reference it in some way, Akila. If you want to start that, and we'll work on it. Like,
okay.
Like make that a whereas. And then I'm gonna do Shino, because I'm sure a lot of parents don't realize that they do have a voice with their representative on the SLT in the person that they voted for. Shino?
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry, you weren't finished?
No, I'm totally finished. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Patricia. So this resolution doesn't say schools have to be fully remote for everybody, right? So it still allows families who need in-person schooling to choose in person. So I don't really see an issue that Matthew raised with this. And also, if you look at citywide, those who are advocating for having a remote option are the less privileged in the system. They're the Black and brown parents, they're the immigrant parents, they're the historically marginalized parents who are screaming for this remote option. So from that perspective, I think it's really good for us to have this resolution move forward. The only other thing I wanted to say is we do have a parent from PS 130. She or he is logged in as YI. So I just wanted to alert you to that if you wanted to see what the PS 130 experience was like.
Oh, I can make an exception to, because it's rare. Let me, guys, I'm gonna pause and promote why hold on. Is it working? Yeah.
Did you also see did you see the comment in the chat from the journalism student?
I did not.
I
Janine.
would suggest, Annabella, that I guess maybe chat to Matthew and Elka and Leslie and ask them directly here. Can you, or can you only chat to the panelists? Actually, I don't know. I think it's only host and panelists. What do you think, Janine? An email? You're muted.
Sorry, put your email, I guess put your email, share your email and we can share it with people who spoke if you want to follow up, but this is a public meeting, so everything, it's live stream. So Annabella needs microphone access.
Oh.
How about this, Annabella? Why don't you just private chat to the host your email address, and we will share it with those parents, and they will get in touch with you if they are so inclined. Cool?
Okay. Yi, I hope I'm not messing your name up. We would love to hear the experience at PS 130, if you're able to share that with us now. Please unmute if you're. Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry,
Welcome.
daughter's still up. I'm happy to answer any questions. I just started at this school with my daughter in pre-K, and she actually didn't attend today because I kind of felt like she had, a runny nose, and I just wanted to start the year off right. But I did go by the school anyway, just to see what was going on. And it was a 9:30 entry for only pre-K. All the other students were staggered prior to that through different doors. And the pickup was also the same. I didn't go by, but it was, a 2:00 pickup, and all the other ones. There was a whole chart which I can share, but the school sent a chart of the building saying which doors are for what time and what grades.
Okay. Well, they seem to be pretty organized from what you noticed. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And please come back every month. We'd love to have a voice from that community here monthly to give us like a heads up on what's happening. Thank you. How do you pronounce your name?
Oh, it's Yuki.
Yuki. Thank you, Yuki.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm gonna now, okay, go ahead, Mar. I think you're next. You're muted.
I'm just going to speak to, Shino said it. The great majority of families that chose remote are not the privileged set by any stretch. These are not people that have the luxury of staying home. These are people who are terrified, particularly in the Asian community, to let their kids out of the house. And they're still scared. There was a protest last week on the steps of City Hall, 500 Asian families begging for a remote option. These are not rich people who have a luxury of ordering a tutor for their kids. These are predominantly low-income families, families of color, whose communities have been decimated by COVID, and they are scared and terrified to send their kids into a school building, so they will make it work. So if we can advocate to give them that peace of mind, if that is what they choose, then I think we have an obligation to do that.
Thank you, Mara. I don't see any other raised hands, so I think we have captured everything that we could possibly capture, and we have time to still work on this before full board. So I just want to say thank you to all the parents that came out tonight and shared their experience. I hope you got some, I don't know, resolution or that you had a place here to talk about it and express it so that we can capture it and get it to our elected officials and get your thoughts across. It's now 8:14 and I'm going to, if there's nothing else to add, I'm gonna say thank you guys. I'll be working on this reso and I'll be sharing it again. And I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Yeah, I see. Okay, second. Thank you, guys. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night. Bye, Shino. Bye, Michael.